Let's bust a myth. Hebrew was never a dead language. Seriously. The story goes that after the destruction of the temple, the Jews stopped speaking Hebrew until Eliezer ben Yehuda brought it back from the dead in the 1800s. This is so accepted you'll hear it uncritically quoted by anyone who talks about Hebrew. But it's not true. In 2012, I was in Morocco trying to have a conversation with a local Jew. I didn't speak French or Arabic, and he didn't speak English or Persian. And so we settled on the one common language we had, some form of Hebrew picked up from lifetimes of Torah study and Hebrew school. In the early diaspora, Hebrew stopped being the primary native language for most Jews, but it was actually still studied throughout the Jewish world, so thoroughly that people could speak it, and it was spoken as a lingua franca among Jews. The Gemara and the works of Geonim written in the Middle East were in Aramaic and also Hebrew. The early Karaites in Iran were writing in Hebrew. When Benjamin Mitudela of Spain traveled all over the Jewish world in the 1100s, was he speaking Spanish with the Jews of Greece, North Africa, and Iran? No. He was speaking Hebrew, the language that most Jews had studied well enough to be able to speak it among themselves for lack of other common languages. He also wrote his famous travel book in Hebrew. While the Rambam usually wrote in Judeo-Arabic, he wrote his Mishneh Torah in Hebrew, specifically so that it would be accessible to a wider Jewish audience. Jewish poets of the Mediterranean, Eastern Europe, Iran, Yemen all wrote poems in Hebrew, suggesting that they probably spoke Hebrew. Imagine writing a poem in a language that you can't speak. It doesn't really make sense. In the writings of the Jews, including in Iran, extremely well-written Hebrew abounds. In the spoken languages of these Jews, from Yiddish to Ladino to Judeo-Shirazi, there are borrowed Hebrew phrases that suggest a conversational proficiency with the language. And Jews have always written letters to each other in Hebrew. Sure, most of this Hebrew was Mishnaic Hebrew. Often it was influenced by the grammar of the speaker's host language. But Ben Yehuda, who revived Hebrew, also displays influence from his native languages in the dialect he solidified and popularized. He's just one in a chain of Jews speaking Hebrew for thousands of years. There are dozens of testimonies from European Jewish travelers in the 1700s and 1800s traveling to Iran who write that they could easily communicate with the local Jews by just speaking Hebrew. Sure, their accents and pronunciations were different, but they'd all grown up with the same texts and they knew how to theoretically speak those texts that were written. And famously, in the 20th century, when Jews from all over the world gathered in Israel, there are stories about the Jews from Yemen, Iran, Iraq, Kurdistan, Syria, picking up the new Hebrew language with shocking speed. The reason? They showed up already speaking fluent Hebrew. A different dialect, sure, one that had always taken a backseat to Arabic, Persian, Aramaic, and so on. But still, spoke in Hebrew. And I've seen this firsthand. I have family members who have never once studied modern Israeli Hebrew, but because of the quality of their Jewish education in Iran, they have no problem speaking a kind of antiquated biblical Hebrew with somewhat confused but still understanding modern Israelis. Because this story that Hebrew wasn't spoken until someone from Russia brought it back from the dead, it's a story that ignores the reality for so many Jewish communities throughout the world. The reality that we never gave up on our language, even when we had so many other ones to choose from.